Welcome to Biscuits and Tea with JP. Today I have Katie Maycock with me, who is the founder of Get Your Shit Together. It is a business that helps CEOs and companies fight anxiety and stress. Before we get into the questions and the stuff we're going to discuss today, we're going to find out what Katie is drinking.
It's a tea.
It's a tea. Good start. Well, I've got Yorkshire tea.
I've got peppermint.
Oh, peppermint is good. That's good.
Good for the gut, you know?
Yeah, I like that. It's good for the old tummy. Normally we talk about biscuits as well, but Katie is fasting. And out of respect, I haven't brought any biscuits either. I'm starving with her. All right?
Starving.
So first question. There you go. First question for you then is... and what is it you do exactly?
All right. So my name is Katie Maycock, as you have generously said, and I am the founder of Get Your Shit Together, literally and figuratively. And I work with people talking about the impact that stress and anxiety has on the body and the mind and how that can present itself in the workplace, businesses, and all that kind of stuff. I typically work one-on-one with CEOs, but I also work with companies talking about how stress and anxiety impacts their employees and what does that actually mean for work efficiency and work output and that kind of stuff and what to look out for. So that's essentially what I do.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what are the telltale signs then for stress and anxiety?
Yeah. So we can break that into two, right? We can look at it as a personal, like if you are somebody that's stressed, or we can see it as if you're a manager looking for somebody that might be stressed within your team. So let's go with how you look for yourself. Like, how can you tell if you're stressed yourself? Now, a lot of people will turn around and go, well, I know when I'm stressed. There are actual people out there that kind of thrive on stress and really love the pressure and they work really efficiently from that. However, that's completely fine. You know, the mindset side of that's not too much of an issue. What happens to the body is what is the biggest problem there. So we have to understand, you know, how are you sleeping? You know, some of the biggest signs of stress is, you know, are you falling asleep okay? Are you waking up throughout the night? How do you wake up? Do you wake up, you know, excited, agitated, or do you just feel pretty normal? You're just like, yeah, I'm pretty good when I wake up. Or are you really tired? Like, how are you feeling? That's a pretty telltale sign that maybe you've got a bit of stress. You're not coping very well. Other things are like gut health issues. So I talk a lot about gut health. I was actually a nutritionist. Well, I'm still a nutritionist, but I started as my first career, I was a nutritionist in a gym, and I ended up specializing in gut health. And that's how I got into understanding the impact that stress has on the body, because your gut health can get completely impacted from stress. So things like IBS, allergies, intolerances, bloating, all that kind of stuff that people kind of know, but they don't like talking about because it's a tad embarrassing. So people don't typically want to talk about it. So that's another big thing. Like, gut health is a huge, huge thing there. Fatigue, you know, tiredness. Also how you behave as well. Are you a bit more frustrated than you normally would be? Are you lacking patience? All that kind of stuff. So there's a few things there to look at on a personal front when you're looking at stress, and just generally not feeling well is a pretty big sign that you're not coping with stress. And I think because we've normalized stress, we forget that it actually is damaging to the body. So being able to go, I'm not feeling great. Why? Let's break down what's happening in your world. So that's on the personal standpoint. Then let's look at how the managers can see, because right now I've got to say managers are probably getting ready to bring back staff if lockdown, you know, when lockdown ends. The other thing is, we're also now remote, so looking and understanding what does stress look like from your employees. And one of the biggest things to look at is behavioral changes, right? So somebody that might be putting out a lot of work all of a sudden isn't putting out a lot of work, asking why, like behavioral changes in how they're communicating. Are they completely withdrawn when they were used to be really outgoing and really get involved? Have they, you know, right now, have they always got their camera turned off? Are they showing up late? Is their communication skills changing? Those types of things is really important to understand looking from being a manager.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. And you touch on coming out of lockdown there and people coming back to the office. And something that I really realised last year when we went into lockdown is actually how much I like people and how much I like being around people. So I've continued to come into the office on a daily basis throughout the last year. There isn't as many people here and there isn't as many businesses in my office, but just that interaction for me is really vital, because I found when I was working at home, I just didn't like it. I didn't like getting up in the morning, going downstairs and working at the table and just not seeing people. So it's not even necessarily talking to people, it's just being with other human beings. For me, was really, really important.
Yeah, but we're, as human beings, we're typically social beings. Like, that's absolutely how we've survived, like being social and being around people and that connection. We're all striving for that connection. I mean, even before lockdown, we're having issues with getting that connection right and, having that really good, deep connection with another human being. Now we've added in lockdown. It's definitely been taken that away, but we're social beings. Like, we're naturally wanting to be around other people. And that can mean different things to different people, but that makes sense to me that you would want to be around people. Like, it makes complete sense. I think a lot of people would be like, I'm dying just to get back into the office and just being around people, just being around them. You don't have to talk to me, but just being near them. I think that's a big part.
Yeah, well, I'm in the people business, so it's a good job. I like people beings, right? One of the things as well that I picked up, because, anxiety, there's going to be a lot of people that will feel anxious about going back into work for a number of different reasons, So for you, how can people combat that? How can people, not feel that anxious feeling?
Yeah, so I guess the biggest thing that we've got to look at is understanding stress and anxiety and understanding where they come from and understanding what that means for other people. So so we've got to look at stress and anxiety pre and post COVID, or during COVID as well. So before COVID, before we went into lockdown, there was a huge issue with stress, burnout, anxiety. There was already a huge issue. Then we popped in some, lockdown, which has probably heightened that anxiety and heightened those stress levels. And you've got to also remember, anxiety can also be a behavioral issue as well. So the other thing is that we've got to look at is understanding the anxiety aspect and what's going on for you and inside you, and understanding the difference between stress and anxiety as well. So stress is something that we're reacting completely to something that's in front of us. So something that makes sense. We've got a deadline, we've got COVID, we've got family issues. That's something that we can understand, and how we perceive that is why we're stressed about that. Anxiety is a feeling of stress without something right directly in front of us. It's like, I just feel really uncomfortable right now, but I don't really know what it is. So it's being able to understand that. And I think it's being able to have that conversation as an individual, going like, what is giving me that stress? Like, what is causing me that uncomfortable feeling going back into the office? Like, what really is it? And once we understand what it is, we can kind of start creating a different narrative about it and understanding how can we manage that a bit better, rather than just going, I'm feeling really anxious about going back into the office. It's understanding, well, what is it about going back into the office? Like, what is actually the real problem? Like, what's going on here? And understanding how we can cope with that, because everyone's going to be really different. Everyone might have the same symptom of, I'm feeling anxious to go into the office, but that root cause is going to be very different for different people. So understanding that is what we need to do. That's what I would understand, where that comes from.
That's going to be difficult for a lot of businesses, right? Because there's small businesses, like 10 people, let's say, and then there's businesses that have got 500, 1,000, 10,000 employees. I mean, they're surely not going to be able to manage that en masse, are they? Because it's like you say, it's an individual thing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So how do you do something that you can? How do you do something that will be pushed out to the masses, but it will cater for them on an individual basis?
So I guess when we're looking at really big companies, it's actually understanding your employees and what their needs are, and actually really getting to the bottom of, let's do, obviously I hate doing surveys, but understanding what those surveys mean and what you're trying to understand and what solutions you can offer. But you can't solve a problem without understanding the actual root cause of the issue. So you need to get an understanding of where your employees are at and what you can do about it. What happens if 60% of your employees are like, yeah, I can't wait to get back into the office. That's amazing. You can't then say the 40% of those people just suck it up and come back into the office. Well, majority rules. You've got to be able to go, well, hang on a second. How can we be a bit more flexible? We've been working remotely for the last 12 months. We've obviously got some technology set up to be able to provide that to our employees. Maybe we do create a flexible work week, which is something that a lot of us are talking about, and potentially, break it up a little bit, having days where you can come into the office and you can work from home. Having that flexibility is really important. So for big companies, it's understanding, well, the first things first, understanding what are the problems within your company, understanding where your management is. Is your management team actually, are they actually able to manage those people and manage this situation? Do they need some training? Do they need a bit more support about understanding mental health, stress, anxiety, pressure, and how people are perceiving it? Do they need a bit more support and understanding on the empathy side? Is that set up as well? Like, how is your company culture designed to be based around talking about uncomfortable conversations about stress and anxiety and all that kind of stuff, and having those open conversations? It's really, really important for companies right now to take a massive step back and actually look at, okay, cool, like, what was our issues before COVID? What came to light, during COVID? Because I'm telling you this now, the issues that were before COVID kind of heightened in COVID doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go away once we've opened up again. So it's you need to get to the root understanding of your employees. Maybe you have to do that en masse, but understanding that and understanding solutions and not doing the majority rules. It's like, oh, well, 60% of us want to come into the office, like everyone else, just suck it up. It's like, no, you need to help people and understand where they're at.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, because when you were saying that, I was thinking it's got to be in layers, right? It's got to come from the top down. If the top care, then it just goes down each layer, and everybody's looking after their teams and making sure everybody's in a good place. Yeah,
I mean, you've got to be realistic. If you've got 10,000 people in your company, you've obviously got multiple managers, and being able to have good conversations, from the top down is where it's going to change. So that's what it has to be.
Yeah, I can imagine. With the people that you work with, is it a really broad spectrum of things that get people stressed, or is there like a few common themes?
Yeah, so if you look at the research and you look at what people are saying, so a lot of research is coming out that the stress that people are feeling right now, it's long working hours. Like, people are feeling like they have to work longer because of job security. So we've also, if we look at right now, but we can also look at broader going outside of COVID, but right now people are feeling a little insecure in their jobs. They're wondering if, they're working longer hours. That's a bit more stressful. They've obviously had kids at home a lot more. So trying to be that guilt that they're feeling, but trying to work while taking care of their kids is really stressful. That's a big one. But actually, one of the biggest reasons of stress in the workplace is actually workplace politics. So you typically toxic culture and things like that. That's one of the biggest stress levels. But obviously, again, even just outside of COVID, it's long hours, the commute, toxic workplaces, politics. Poor management is a really big one as well. So if you feel like you're not heard as an employee, and that's coming from your management, that's going to cause you a lot of stress. Yeah,
it's an interesting topic, that, isn't it? It's a bit of a minefield. I've read a few different studies and listened to various podcasts about engagement, and how if employees feel like their views are respected and they want to be heard, then the business performance just goes through the roof, doesn't it?
If you feel heard and here's the thing. If you think about just humans on a general level, we just take work out of it. If you feel like what you're doing is directly impacting the output of the company or output of something that's happening, you're going to be more engaged in it. If you have no idea of what you're doing and what you're, and how, the work that you're doing or putting into, and this is in anything, and you don't feel like there's going to be an outcome out of it, like, why would you do it? You're not going to be engaged in it. You're just going to be like, oh, I guess I'm just another number pushing around some papers. Yeah. It's like, no, I actually want to make sure that I feel valued and what I'm doing makes sense for the growth of the company, and I'm just not just a number. Yeah. So if we and then we put that into the work sense, it's like, for instance, if you're building a house and the walls keep falling down, are you going to keep doing it? No, you're just going to be like, well, why are my walls falling down? And you've just got people going like you're doing a crappy job. Like, why would you keep doing that? Like, no, you're going to stop. Yeah. So it's the same in the workplace, right? If you have no idea.
No, definitely. Okay. I mean, I've got a good understanding of what it is you do. And I mean, why have you started doing it? Why did you start the business?
So this is a bit of a story. Okay. So I've always been pretty driven, pretty motivated, pretty goal orientated. And so I've always been that way. And for me, stress was something that I used as a fuel to get me from point A to point B. So, when I was still at university, I was doing a double degree, and I set up my first business in my final year, which, it wasn't the smartest idea, but I definitely did it. I was working full time, going to uni full time, which was crazy. And then after that, my business grew. I was growing my business and did that for 3 years and just kept on you know, working consistently, very rarely taking breaks, all that kind of stuff. And then a bit of an issue happened, and I ended up falling into recruitment, as you do. I think if I would love to meet somebody that says, I didn't fall into recruitment, I sorted out and decided to jump into recruitment. That was a great idea. I'd love to meet that person. But I ended up in recruitment and took that mentality back into recruitment. But I was also 23 or 24 at the time, and I looked like I was around 15. And so many people were like, you know, you're never going to build anything in your first month. You know, you're probably not going to last. You know, I mean, recruitment can be a bit of a revolving door when you first start out. I was really young and I was really naive, but because people like thought I had no chance of being successful, I was like, oh, I'm going to prove all these people wrong. So I literally just worked my ass off, worked really long hours, and ended up, you know, billing like 60K in my first month, and did really, really well with that. But what happened was I'd pushed myself too far. You know, I was waking up at like 5 a.m. and going to the gym and not getting home until 7 o'clock at night and not going to bed properly and not taking care of myself. I ended up burning out really, really badly when I was 26 and then 27 again. And I ended up getting so sick that I couldn't even do my job. I could barely get out of bed, let alone be engaged in a conversation in recruitment. So I burnt out the first time. Took quite a bit of time off, came back again, and within 6 months I burnt out again. And I ended up having to take a step back because I couldn't keep doing that cycle. I couldn't keep, you know, going into work and then burning out. It just wasn't healthy. It just wasn't something that was sustainable. And being 26, 27, you know, I couldn't walk up and down stairs properly because I was in so much pain. I had huge amounts of gut health issues. I mean, at this stage, I'd spent around 30,000 Australian dollars just trying to figure out what was wrong with my gut. And everyone was like, there's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And I couldn't keep living like that. So, I mean, I have a double degree in nutrition and advanced physiology. I should have known better. So I ended up taking a step back and understanding how does stress impact the body? And if it's so bad, like what's the point of it? And so I started creating the concept of get your shit together back then, because I had really bad gut health issues and just everything was kind of out the window. So I was like, God, Katie, get your shit together literally and figuratively, my God. And so I then realized I wasn't the only person that did that. Like my story is, you know, unique to me, but there's 1,000 people, millions of people that have had a similar, could probably relate to that. Just kind of, I can understand that. And so I decided to go and help people that, you know, the type A professionals that needed that support with from stress and anxiety. So that's why I do what I do, because I didn't want anyone to ever feel the way I felt and go through what I felt like, because it was absolutely horrific.
Yeah. Okay. So good reason. And you've got credentials then.
Yeah.
You've been through the cycle a few times. So you definitely are coming from a place of experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I mean, the second time of burning out, it was like, you know, the first time just wasn't enough. I had to do it again just to really understand it.
Yeah. I mean, I know, you know, it's not great for you, but it's great for your clients who you've actually been through that cycle, because it's relatable, right? And you can sympathize with people and have empathy for them, and you can really, really understand how they're feeling.
Yeah. Which
is amazing. And everything happens for a reason, right? It might not have been great at the time, but when you look back, look at what you're doing. I mean, for me, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like it's a purposeful job that you've...
Yeah, and I freaking love it. Like, I love being able to talk to people about, you know, I've been able to bring two things that I really love together. Like, I've been able to bring in my nutrition and also my understanding of corporate and understanding the pressure and stress and being able to help people with that. And again, like, it's not about necessarily removing stress, right? We're never going to remove stress from our lives. And, you know, for instance, like if I looked back on my career, I could never remove the stress of what the job really did, but how I reacted to it could definitely change, and I could use that as more of a productive way. For me as well, I also suffered really badly from anxiety during that time. So stress and anxiety, even though people interchange them, they're actually very different. So being able to understand, okay, hang on a second, like what's going on? How can I perceive this differently? What could I be doing differently? And how can my behaviors that I do every single day change to help reduce that stress? And I think the thing is that a lot of people, when they hear what I do, it's like, oh, but stress is really good. It's like, yeah, but what's happening to the body? Or going, you know, like, I can't tell people that I'm stressed out because, you know, I'm worried that I'll get judged. It's like, well, no, how can we perceive that differently? Like, what can we be doing differently in that situation?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you talk about nutrition there, which is an interesting one. Obviously, for gut health, it's very relevant. But, you know, the things that you'll be able to tell the audience better than I will, but the things that you eat and drink obviously have a great impact, don't they? Well, can have a bad impact on your behaviours.
Yeah, so there's a huge body of work coming out right now talking about the relationship between the gut and the brain. So they're saying that the gut is the second brain. Now, a lot of people actually coming out and saying, actually, is the gut the first brain because it's created before the brain? Who knows? But the gut has its own nervous system, which means it can react to situations like the brain. But they do communicate, and there has to be that relationship. And so when your gut health is really poor, it can actually change your behaviors and your cognitive ability as well. So meaning that how you process information, how you can be resilient, how you can mental health and all that kind of stuff. So gut health directly impacts that. The other thing that we've got to remember about gut health, it's also really important in immunity. Now, the reason why that's really important, especially when we're looking at mental health and we're looking at depression and things like that, if we are inflamed, and which also comes from obviously our immune system, there's a body of work coming out saying the more inflammation we have, the more likely that we're going to suffer from depression, because it changes the chemicals in the brain, it changes all the physiology in the brain. So it's actually increasing the likelihood of getting things like depression, anxiety, and all those kind of things. So being able to actually feed your body appropriately is really, really important. And so, having a diet full of sugar and drinking a lot of alcohol and eating lots of processed foods is going to cause a lot of inflammation in the gut. It's going to cause a lot of gut health issues, which is then going to change how we behave and how we're actually able to take in information as well. It's just not a positive thing. And it's not just, woohoo science. There's actual proper science coming out about that now.
Yeah. I guess in some respects it's kind of self-explanatory. Don't eat loads of sugar, don't drink loads of alcohol, and whatever else. But is there any things that you would say to people, right, get a handle on this and this, and it will help you, feel better on a daily basis?
Yeah. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the alcohol element. So this is a complete misconception that a lot of people do. What's the first thing that people do when they're, they had a really busy day, a really stressful day? What do they do when they get home? A lot of people will reach for the, good old bottle of wine, or they have a gin and tonic. It's I just need to relax. The alcohol will relax me. Now, alcohol will relax you in the moment, but the other issue with alcohol is it impacts a lot of other health issues. So completely ruins your gut health. So you've got to be really careful about that. The other thing is as well, stress will also ruin your gut health, will actually change how you digest food. So there's a whole thing there. So if you're adding alcohol to that, you're ruining your gut health there. The other thing as well with alcohol is it actually prevents you getting into a deep sleep. So it prevents you getting into a deep REM sleep, so the rapid eye movement sleep. And sleep deprivation also increases the likelihood of having stress and anxiety. So it's just the worst thing that you can really do. And it can also make you feel anxious. So, you might not feel anxious in the moment, but then you wake up the next day feeling very anxious and a lot more stressed than you would have if you didn't drink. So that's why alcohol isn't always the best thing to drink when you're feeling stressed out or whatever it is. I'm not saying be complete teetotal. So you don't have to cut it out completely. But I also say to people maybe during the week, try and find a better way to manage your stress, not through alcohol. The other thing that I would, so go on.
I can relate to that because as I've got a bit older, I don't know, it must probably affect most people. As I've got a bit older, if I don't drink in the week, if I have one too many at the weekend, it's not normally the day out. It's not normally the next day. It's the day after where I feel a bit lethargic and I don't feel myself, and it's not a nice feeling.
You got a bit of brain fog going. You just can't concentrate. You're a bit more reactive. You're a bit more frustrated. Yeah. So that's why I always say, if you're going to do anything, just limit your alcohol during the week because it's just not good for you. The other thing that I would also say, obviously, we all know sugar's bad for us. It's going to damage your gut health, all that kind of stuff. But things that I would be telling people to do is actually really make sure that they're increasing their fruits and vegetables. So when you look at your plate, what you've got to see is 80% plants. And that can also be a small portion of starches, rice, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not against carbs. I think carbs are amazing. So I'm not the kind of nutritionist that's don't eat carbs, they'll make you fat. I'm not into that. No, we can have a chat about that another time. That's something else I'm very passionate about. But also then you've got 80% that, and then 15% looking at, protein. So that could be animal based, whatever it is, and then 5% fat. So we also really do need fat. So when you're looking at your plate, if you've got more vegetables on your plate than you do have meat, you're winning. So just try and do that, because what do people do right now? Most people sort of make the meat the main event, and forget about the veggies. But increasing that and trying to eat a wide variety is also really important. And you can eat fruits, all that kind of jazz as well. So just try and eat like real food. Like just try to eat real food. None of this crappy processed stuff.
Yeah, no. Well, I haven't worked in recruitment for a long time. Some of the guys I've worked with, I don't know how they do it. You know, they'll have McDonald's nearly every day of the week, or it'll be a McDonald's, a KFC, a Chinese, you know, loads of stuff. And don't get me wrong,
you're breaking my nutrition heart. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I know. I get involved every now and then, but like some of these guys will be doing it daily, and I just think, geez.
You can't be feeling good. Like, you can't be feeling good. You've got, and here's the thing though, like what you've got to remember is when people eat like that all the time, they don't understand how crappy they feel, because their level of understanding how crappy they feel is going to be completely different to yours. So what happens when they start eating a little bit healthy for a week or two, they'll be like, holy crap, I felt so shitty and I had no idea, because their feeling of shitty might be really different to people who do eat healthy. So that's something that if you're listening to this and you're eating heaps of Maccas, you're getting heaps of takeaway, or, you know, you're back in the office and you're eating like whatever it is, going out for lunch every day, and you're just eating crappy food, you probably have no idea how crappy you feel. Like, you probably have no idea how low energy you have, how tired you actually are, because that's just your norm.
Yeah, it's funny. And something else I picked up on, you mentioned carbs there, okay? And I've stopped eating meat. So I stopped eating meat probably about 6 months ago. And I tried not to eat too much in the way of carbs, because I always thought that that's what made me put weight on. And the weird thing is, since I've stopped eating meat, I've eaten so, like, from a carbohydrate point of view, geez, it's gone through the roof. And I haven't put weight on because of that at all. It's weird.
Okay, calories in, calories out. To lose weight, you always have to be in a calorie deficit. That's how it works. So it doesn't matter where it's coming from. You have to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight. So it doesn't matter if here's the thing, right? If bulk of your diet is really crappy carbs, like not good carbs, and that's all you're eating, and you're overeating them, and if you just reduce them a little bit, you're going to lose weight. So it's not about carbs that make you gain weight. It's a calorie deficit. And here's the thing, like carbohydrates can be easy, like sugar, right? That's a carbohydrate. It doesn't make you feel full. It's going to give you energy for a short period of time and make you crash, and you're going to want to eat more of it. So you're going to have this cycle of wanting to eat carbs. So essentially you will then associate carbs as making you gain weight. It's like, well, no, it's just that's your kryptonite, right? But it's calories in, calories out. The reason why that you're probably finding that you could eat a crap load more carbs now because you've taken out meat is because your calories have dramatically decreased, which typically happens when you stop eating meat, because meat's like got fat in it, right? And you're probably not eating as much fat as you were. So it's probably going to be more the fact that you cut out a bit more fat, because it's harder to get fat. Well, not harder, but you're not getting it in the same amount from eating meat.
It's great. I eat chips all the time now. I love it.
There you go. And the other thing is as well, weight. When we're looking at weight gain and stuff like that, it is a calorie deficit, but stress also impacts that, right? Like if you're somebody that's like, I'm trying to lose weight, I can't lose weight, and my diet's near perfect. Like, we've got to understand, well, what else is going on? Like, where's your stress levels at? It is always calorie deficit, but it's understanding how your body is reacting to the food you're putting in.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Okay, cool. So for you, in terms of top tips, okay, so if, you know, whoever's listening to this, if they really want to set themselves up on a daily basis for success, what would you say your top tips are? What should people be doing or thinking about?
So let's break this down into the 3 areas that I work in. So I work in physical health, so understanding how stress impacts physical health. Then let's look at mindset, and then let's look at business. So whether that's you're in a business as in your work day as well. So your first tip is getting your shit together physically. Even if just choose one thing that you want to fix, whether that's your sleep schedule, whether that's your diet, whether that's your exercise, something like that. Choose something that you want to work on that's actually going to make you feel better. Create better physical habits based on what you can do. Because here's the thing, stress directly impacts your physical health. It changes the way you digest food. It changes the way your immune system works. It changes the way blood flow goes through your body. It changes your blood sugar levels. So just trying to manage that is really, really important. So whether that's getting a good night's sleep, making that your priority, or making diet your priority, just choose one thing. why not don't overhaul? The reason why you don't want to overhaul your whole physical health is because it will be unrealistic and unsustainable and you won't be able to stick to it. So just pick one thing, focus on that, be really awesome at that, high five yourself when you've succeeded that, and then pick something else after that. On the mindset thing, I would be looking at really good tools on how to understand what is your stress and how do you react to it. So I would be spending a bit of time going like, what are my biggest stresses and what are the behaviors that show up in that and what triggered that? Really being able to break that down, just even understanding that can be hugely beneficial, and understanding how you react can be such a benefit, because you can go, you know what, like when, you know, my colleague does this, or when so-and-so does this, or when, you know, whatever happens, that it makes me feel like this. And then I get really angry and then I yell and we have an argument and it makes the situation worse. Being able to break it down, going, oh, when so-and-so said this one thing or whatever that triggers you to be angry or upset or stressed, you have an option to remove yourself. That's just one example. But understanding that, breaking it down, going, what are my stresses? What's causing them? And what behaviors are showing up during that I don't really like, that aren't positive, can be just hugely, that can be that's a massive tip there. And the third thing is understanding how you want to work. So typically a lot of our stress can come from how do we work? Understanding how we actually work and how productive we can be is really important, because when we feel stressed, we can get into that loop of procrastination. We can get into the loop of not actioning, and we can get into these really bad habits of just not, kind of like being a bit passive and just not working really hard. So being able to understand, what is the minimum I can do every single day that's going to help me be productive? So breaking that down into like, you know, I just need to do X, Y, and Z, and doing that every single day to help you just manage that stress. Because I guarantee you, if you do nothing because you're really stressed out and you've done nothing, it's going to add to that stress as well. So being able to understand that. On the flip side, for the people that work too much, really understand what your limit is, because burning yourself out is trust me, it ain't fun. So being able to understand, am I actually working too much, and understanding, am I sleeping enough? And then going back, kind of loops back to the physical health. What's my physical health telling me? Okay, cool. Maybe I'm working 18 hours a day isn't the smartest thing for me right now. Yeah, no, they're really good tips. Some of the stuff there resonates with me a lot. One of the things I found last year, you know, I went from working in a business where I've been there for 9 years. I started my own business in February of last year, went into lockdown. Everything got thrown up in the air a little bit. I found that I went into a bit of a tailspin, and I was procrastinating too much. And I was also taking in too much information from various different sources. So my mind was clouded. Yeah, information overload. That is actually a thing. Like, that is actually a thing. And let me guess, you were taking in heaps of information and didn't know how to take action. Yeah, exactly. So I was taking in all this information and I wasn't, acting. I wasn't pulling the trigger on anything. Mm-hmm. I was like, it almost like a deer in the headlights. You rendered yourself inactive by too much information. You actually caused yourself too much anxiety and too much stress, and you didn't know what to do because you've got so many, probably had conflicting information out there as well. Yeah, exactly that. So one of the things that I implemented is I stopped listening to the news completely. Good one. Completely. And I've probably, now if I'm in my car and the news comes on, I actually turn it off because it's so negative. For me anyway, I find it negative, so it doesn't help me, so I just turn it off. And then there's been other occasions where I'm at home and it might pop on and I just turn the channel over. So that was the first thing I did. And also, I'd already done this actually. I'd done it in the end of 2019. I'd just come off Facebook completely because I thought that wasn't helping. But one of the things that I did do too much last year, which didn't help with the cloudiness, was that I started listening to too many gurus. You should do this, you should do that, you should get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you should have an ice bath. Oh God. You should eat nuts and bananas. Do you know what I mean? Like loads of stuff. And it just, like you say, too many conflicting ideas. Mm-hmm. It's not good for you. I call those gurus motivational Martins because they just give you the most ridiculous advice. Like, wake up at 5 a.m. But why? Like, what are you doing at 5 a.m.? Like, what time did you go to bed? Like, if you went to bed at 9 p.m. and you woke up at 5 a.m., for sure. But why do you want to wake up at night, like 5 a.m.? Like, what's the point of it? And then, like, nutrition is really conflicting, right? So, like, there's so much information about nutrition that's conflicting. And then there's people like, one of the most ridiculous things that I've seen a motivational Martin say, all those gurus, is like, sell your mattress until like you've earned your ability to like sleep properly. It's like, are you freaking bananas? Like, there's just so much dumb stuff out there. Like, it drives me nuts when I see it.
It's not healthy, is it?
No, it's not healthy. It's like a lot of the information that's out there is just so too much. Like, it's too much. And what people have to remember, they've got to meet themselves where they're at. Like, where are you at? Is waking up at 5 a.m. right now really realistic? And what are you hoping to achieve from that? Like, what's the point of it? If it makes sense, like maybe you've got kids, right? Maybe you're like, you know what? My kids are driving me insane. I just need an hour by myself. And the only hour I can have is between 5 and 6 a.m. just to like check in with myself. That makes sense to me. But if you're getting a proper night's sleep, then that's cool as well. But it doesn't make sense if it's just, I'm going to start work at 6 a.m. and I'm going to start prospecting at like 7 a.m. because, you know, I know CEOs are having their breakfast at that time. It's like, dude, like, don't do that if that doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm on board with that because I'm actually somebody that I don't get up late. You know, I get up at between 6 and 7, but I'm always somebody that performs better later in the day. So I'm all right in the morning, but, you know, I start work at a normal time at like 8:30, and I will work later as opposed to getting up at like 4 o'clock and starting work at 5 o'clock. And do you know what I mean? I perform better later in the day.
Yeah, you got to work with what you've got, right? Like for me, I'm a morning person. I will 100% do my best work in the morning. And so I do my best work in the morning, and then the afternoon I do what I do. Like, I don't need to be working. Like, trust me, I've done the 18-hour days. I've done the 16-hour days. Was I more productive at that, you know, 18th hour? No. Hell no, was I not productive. But, you know, was I productive at the 8-hour mark? Kind of, but it was dipping off. So I literally worked 10 extra hours, and it didn't make sense for me to do that. Like, it's not about the hours that you're working, it's the input that you're putting in. It has to make sense to you. And it can't be coming from like Joe Bloggs down the road that's just, I don't know, an overnight guru because he decided to be a business coach. No, it's got to be realistic to you. You've got to kind of break down, well, what's my life look like? Well, I've got 5 kids that wake up at 6 a.m. You know, maybe that's not the best time for me to start work. Like, you got to go with where you're at.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, though. I mean, the internet and social media is really good for some things, but there's a lot of stuff where it isn't that helpful, right? And I think nowadays everybody's got a voice and everybody's shouting, right? And that's where like all these conflicting interests, conflicting ideas come from. Yeah,
I mean, like, we've all seen the people that have got that conflicting view. I mean, like right now, there's that conversation about Boris Johnson that came out and said people have had enough days off work. It's a bit out of touch comment, like just saying it's a bit out of touch comment. But you know, I saw someone post about it, and then this was like, this isn't for LinkedIn, this is for Facebook. It's like, hang on a second, what are you talking about? Like, everyone's got an opinion and everyone wants to shout it out, and it's just, you know what? That's the other thing, right? We don't have proper discourse. And that's something that needs to change because of social media. That needs to change. We need to have proper discourse.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Oh, Boris, I feel sorry for him. I bet he could probably do with your help.
Good. You know what? Pass me his number.
I bet he hasn't got a good gut health either. I can just tell that guy hasn't got good gut health.
You know, he's probably a bit stressed out. It's probably been the most stressful year of his life. But yeah.
I would say so.
I would not want to be a leader like in the government right now. It's got to be a very challenging time. So definitely a difficult one out there.
I'll be shooting this video over to them for you.
Thanks.
Doing a little bit of promotion because I'll tell you what, they've probably got the budget for it. I'd say. Definitely got the budget for it. Well, look, Katie, it's been great speaking to you. I'm sure that's going to be helpful for everybody that listens to this video. Now, if anybody's interested in finding out a little bit more about what you do and working with you, what's the best way for people to contact you?
So go to my LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so definitely hit me up there. Or you can go to my website, which is www.getyourshittogether.io. I am just about to launch a diet plan. I'm just shameless plug here. I'm about to launch a diet plan called Calling Bullshit on Your Diet Plan, which is it's a 30-day plan, which is a diet plan that focuses on gut health, stress. Everything that we spoke about today is pretty much in the plan, like mindset, how to structure your day, how to build a really good foundation for just general health. So that's getting launched on the 6th of April. So reach out if you want to know a little bit more about that. Shameless plug. Shameless
really
plug.
Good plug. Really good plug. Thank you very much, Kate. Great meeting you today. And if there's any candidates or clients listening to this video and they need help finding or securing talent in the data and cloud space, then you can hit me up on LinkedIn as well and send me a DM. Thanks very much for listening. Cheers, Katie.
No problem.
Great to have you on board today.